The turnover of this industry at the moment, at the present rate, is approximately 2 lakh crores. When it is 2 lakh crores, 5,000 crores is not much.
Our top story tonight, the government dismisses concerns of telcos. Telecom Secretary Rakesh Garg says there's no justification for a tariff hike as the results of the spectrum auction proved that the reserve price was right. The Secretary says he hopes telcos will heed to the government appeal to make an upfront payment of at least 15,000 crore rupees by the 31st of March to help meet the fiscal deficit target.
Could be a partial passing on to customers or partial tariff hike that would be
I think it's inevitable.
Telecom companies don't buy the government's argument. Idea says significant tariff hikes are inevitable to deal with the burden of the spectrum bill. MD Himanshu Kampania adds the company's debt will rise by 70% post the auctions and amortization costs will take the toll on the balance sheet by FY17.
On street signs, bulls are back in the driver's seat after 8 days of a drubbing. Benchmark indices surge almost 2% with the Nifty closing in on 8,500. The Sensex puts on 500 points. Capital goods, infra and banking stocks see strong buying.
SEBI proposes an alternate listing platform for startups to raise funds from institutions and high net worth individuals within India. The proposal, which is aimed at preventing startups from listing abroad, also states individual shareholding in these companies has to be under 25%.
Crude prices continue to fall as an already oversupplied market fears the addition of Iranian oil exports. This as talks over Iran's nuclear program intensify before the March 31st deadline. US markets meanwhile rally with the Dow clocking triple-digit gains.
The CBDT stands by its 20,000 crore rupee tax order on cane in India. The tax department maintains tax matters are not covered under the India-UK bilateral investment treaty.
Incremental non-performing assets are set to decline, big bankers tell CNBC TV 18. However, they add that restructured loans will technically add to NPLs for at least a couple of quarters more.
Suresh Senapati gets ready to bid goodbye to Wipro after 35 years, says the demand environment in India and the US remains positive, but Europe continues to be a problem. Hence, the recently appointed CEO may be a contender for the top job when current CEO T.K. Kurian's term ends next year.
जनाब ये पहाड़ी पीछे से खिसक के आई है और इन तमाम जो ये मकान है ये दब गए नीचे.
Whatever is required to be done from the central government side in terms of coordination, material support, financial support, manpower, everything will be reached on time.
अब जो गवर्नमेंट है उसको सब टीम यहाँ इधर पहुँच रही है और अभी मतलब इसका मालूम नहीं लगता कितना नीचे हो गया अभी और ढूंढ रहा है.
It's been barely 6 months since the disastrous flood struck Jammu and Kashmir, leaving a scar that is yet to heal. And while the devastation caused by last year's flood is still lingering in the minds of the people of the valley, Mother Nature decides to unleash her fury yet again.
Actually, heavy rainfall has caused the water level in the Jhelum River to rise above the danger mark. The J&K government already sounding a flood alert in the state. Evacuation is underway in several places.
Well, we can just hope that all will be fine soon. On that note, let's shift focus to markets where things are thankfully brighter. It's been the start of a new week and the bulls are back on Dalal Street with a bang after 8 losing sessions on the trot shot covering in trade today, helping the market stage a remarkable recovery. Let's take a look at the Sensex, which finally closed at 27,975. That graph tells you the story. We actually saw a pickup coming in towards the latter half of the trading session as opposed to what we were seeing last week where we saw the falls being exacerbated towards the close. A whopping 500 points higher, that was the story for the Sensex, where the Nifty surging 150 points higher, just ending below the 8,500 mark. The mid-caps also falling in step with the frontliners, with the mid-cap index going home with gains of about 1.5%. Is this rally sustainable or not is the big question. But a quick check of the currency market, where the rupee closed at 62.67 from the previous close of 62.42 amidst high month-end demand for the dollar from importers. But a quick check of the commodity markets as well. Our top global focus tonight, it's the last hours of intensive diplomacy over Iran's nuclear program after almost 8 18 months of negotiations. Officials from Iran and 6 world powers are discussing a possible deal over Tehran's nuclear program in Switzerland. This is tomorrow's deadline to reach a framework pact on the issue looms large. If a deal is reached by then, it will set the stage for talks on the technical details of a comprehensive accord which is due by the 30th of June. The essence of the deal will be to keep Iran at least a year away from being able to produce enough nuclear fuel for a single weapon. That agreement will bring an end to economic sanctions and allow an increase in Iranian oil exports. And with that, the oil market, which is already well supplied, and the likelihood of more oil coming in from Iran has seen prices drop further. So Brent crude is now hovering at about 55.64, and NYMEX has fallen below 49 now at 48.39, down by about 1%. WTI NYMEX trading at 47.70. Meanwhile, in Europe, Greek officials are meeting creditors for another round of talks over the country's reform plans. Greece has been expected to present a final list of reforms today, but after a weekend of talks on the proposal submitted on Friday, Athens appears far from receiving any of the 7 billion euros of bailout funds that are outstanding. Germany insists that Greece has not yet presented adequate plans. The country's finance ministry has cautioned that money won't be released until reforms have been approved by the Athens parliament. Without a breakthrough, Greece is expected to run out of funds in April, but that's not impacting markets in Europe, Pentara.
In fact, the sea of green across the European markets. They started the trading day on a strong footing. The British FTSE up by about 0.6%. The German DAX up by about 216 points. French CAC also up by about 54 points. A good day for the European markets. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, we've seen the US markets also opening on a firm footing. That trend very much continuing. Dow up by about 260 points. S&P up by 20 points. Nasdaq is up by almost 40 points.
All right, the big story back home. The telecom industry has been crying itself hoarse post the spectrum auctions, but the government is unwilling to give them a patient hearing. The Cellular Operators Association says the auction payouts will bring the industry to its knees and result in higher tariffs, but the government is not buying the argument. Telecom Secretary Rakesh Garg told CNBC TV 18's Malvika Jain in an exclusive interview that a hike in tariffs is unjustified and telcos have no cause to complain. He also went on to add that he hopes the telecom companies will pay heed to the government's appeal and make at least part payment by the 31st of March, which is tomorrow. Let's see how many companies oblige. Listen in.
What as a government we can do to ensure that the market is competitive and there is enough supply of the spectrum. What you can see in the present spectrum, 67% of extra spectrum has been provided for the auctions. And if the expiring licenses, they were giving approximately 35% of the spectrum. Rest of that has come as a fresh spectrum. So enough spectrum availability has been ensured in the market. So with that enough availability of the spectrum, and now much of it has been picked up. So the spectrum availability in the market will increase. And if you see the amount of the money which has come through the spectrum auction, this spectrum has been given for 20 years. And if you give it for 20 years, per annum expenditure is hardly 5,300 crores. And the turnover of this industry at the moment, at the present rate, is approximately 2 lakh crores. When it is 2 lakh crores, 5,000 crores is not much. And if you divide with the number of the minutes which are being used at the moment, this the whole amount of 5,300 crores, it comes approximately 1.3 paisa per minute, which is hardly any amount.
So this is an argument that has been put forth by the telecom minister as well. But what telecom companies are saying is that they are going to now have to take more loans and they will come under debt. There is already a Bharti Airtel which at the end of March 2014 had a debt burden of 60,542 crore rupees. If you see Arcom, 41,978 crore rupees, and Idea Voda also with a debt burden of around 20,000 crore rupees. So the companies are mired in this. It is very difficult for them to take a business decision because on one hand it is about continuing their operations and on the other it is about increasing this debt burden, and they are saying that this is one of the reasons why tariffs will have to go up.
Tell me, which industry runs without the loans? All the big industries, they have to loan, they have to take loan for running their industries and businesses. And when the banks are giving them loans, the banks have very stringent norms up to which amount they can give loan or how much should be the equity. They will not give loan until the industries are meeting those norms. And the banks also do due diligence while giving the loan. Now once these industries, all of these industries, when you see, they have a debt amount, but they have the debt servicing charges. And whatever are debt servicing charges, after paying that, all of them are in profit. They are not making losses. So once they are making profit, and they have been conscious, and they have been confident of this thing, this much of money they can raise from the banks and from the market, That is why they have gone for the auction, and they have made their prudent business decision. They have, I believe, they have faith in the system of the, they have the faith in the present transparent government and the future telecom growth. And see those two things into account, they have bid in this thing. And I'm sure they will be in a position to raise this much of loan from the market and from the banks. This will not be a problem.
Well, that's Telecom Secretary Rakesh Garg speaking exclusively to CNBC TV 18's Malvik Jain. Also, several other important headlines coming in there from the Telecom Secretary, including saying that he agrees with the Civil Aviation Ministry's proposal that Wi-Fi should be allowed on aircraft. So maybe this is going to be something that we will see the government roll out or facilitate, because the Civil Aviation Ministry has proposed Wi-Fi on aircraft, and now the DOT Secretary saying that his department has no issues with that. But staying with the spectrum auctions, the Telecom Secretary says he expects telecom companies to make an upfront payment of at least 15,000 crore rupees by tomorrow. The government has been betting on this upfront payment to try and contain the fiscal deficit target for the current fiscal to 4.1%, and the telecom minister has already made an appeal to the successful bidders to pay up as soon as possible, despite the deadline for the first tranche of payments being the 8th of April. Now, you heard the government point of view on tariffs and what the auction payout means for the industry. Idea Cellular, though, is all set to hike data and tariff prices to pass on the burden of 30,100 crore rupees spectrum. Speaking to CNBC TV 18's Kritika Saxena, the Managing Director and CEO Himanshu Kapania said that Idea's debt post-auctions will rise by 70% and net debt to EBITDA ratio will go up to a whopping 3.5 to 4 from the current 1.1. However, the company will retain positive cash flows for at least the next 2 years, while the timeline of the payout of the first tranche of 7,700 crore rupees for spectrum has not been finalized. Idea says the 31st of March is too early to make the payment. Will that change tomorrow or not is the big question.
The cost to telecom companies, if we leave out the timing issues, is definitely going to go up, and we have to recover the cost. Would we recover the full cost or bear some of it is a matter of details, and we also want to make sure that the fall in PAT is not too dramatic. So we will take all corrective actions.
Okay, so there could be a partial passing on to customers or partial tariff hike that will be
I think it's inevitable.
It's inevitable.
Yes.
Largely in voice, I'm assuming?
It will be both.
Has to be in. It will be in voice and data.
That's right. We'd like to balance it so that the impact is not on a one segment of the customers.
Consolidation is the name of the game. There's a lot of talk about smaller players being bought out now, from the TTSL to SL. Would you agree? Are you in the race to acquire smaller companies?
Inevitable outcome of this auction and 2014 auction, that the spectrum prices has become 9 to 10 times administered prices. It is going to put a lot of pressure on low market share operators who are currently losing EBITDA, whose renewal is upcoming, to find resources, and they will have to start taking calls whether they would like to participate in the next 20-year growth or would like to call it quits at this point of time.
You're not talking to SL or Tata Teleservices?
No.
You're not talking to either of the players?
Yes, that's right.
The estimated increase in debt, according to analysts, is around 70%. So the net debt to EBITDA ratio is expected to go up from around 1.1. The estimation is anywhere between 3.5 to 4 times. What are the numbers that you're working with right now?
The numbers which the analysts are talking anywhere between 3.5 to 4 looks the kind of numbers that we are likely to have in FY17. While these numbers will reflect on our balance sheets, its impact on cash will be nil. There would be no impact on the cash flows both in 2015-16 as well in 16-17. The interest component would be capitalized, and no amortization will start until the spectrum renewal and the license renewal process starts.
Okay, so the amortization on the spectrum charges and the interest on borrowings will not impact in that case till the renewal starts. What is the timeline for that?
Primarily, you can say that for 7 circles, impact will be only in quarter 4 of FY16, and 2 circles it will be impact of in FY17.
Would you stay away from relaunching 3G services in Mumbai, given how high the cost is right now?
I think Mumbai we believe that there was an error of judgment by Department of Telecommunication, having 800 available at 2200 crores, 900 available at 2800 crores, and 2100, which is where profile is inferior to that both of 800 and 900 at much higher price. We are hoping that they will correct it. If it doesn't correct, we will stay away from Bombay.
The Idea CEO talking about the impact of the spectrum payout, essentially saying that they will have to hike both voice as well as data tariffs. Now, sticking to auctions of airwaves, the government has received 28 applications for participation in the third phase of the FM radio auction. The applicants, which include DV Corp, Reliance Broadcast, HT Media, ENIL and Sun TV, have submitted a total earnest money deposit of about 320 crore rupees towards the auction. About 5 days ago, the TRAI had submitted its recommendations for fixing the reserve price for these auctions. The government plans to put up 831 FM radio channels for auction in 264 new cities. On to the other big story tonight. As part of its continued efforts to remove bottlenecks in the primary market, market regulator SEBI has issued a discussion paper on alternate listing platform for new age companies and startups. Prerna joins us now with more details. Prerna, what does this mean for the likes of Flipkart and Snapdeal that could possibly be looking at a listing?
Well, clearly, this is an all-new platform for startups and Flipkart's in order to discourage them from listing overseas. Now, the discussion paper on alternate listing platform proposes that companies in software development and e-commerce and also new age companies having innovative business models will be able to access this alternate trading platform. Also talking about the structure, a company accessing this alternate trading platform cannot have any shareholder owning more than 25% and must be professionally managed. And also the alternate platform will have two types of investors, QIBs that will include family trust and non-institutional investors, with QIBs allotted the majority chunk of 75%. Now the minimum application size is kept at 10 lakh rupees and lock-in is set at 6 months. So clearly the discussion paper aims at carving out a lenient and separate trading platform in order to boost the over 3,000 startups in India who will now be incentivized with a better price discovery at the time of listing. Back to you, Shri.
All right, Prerna, appreciate you joining us. What does this mean now for the startup universe? Is this a step in the right direction? Joining us now is Rajendra Nalam, partner M&A at BMR Advisors. Rajendra, appreciate you joining us. You probably just heard Prerna taking us through some of the details of that discussion paper that's been put forward by market regulator SEBI. What does it mean for the startup universe, and do you believe that this alternate listing platform is essentially a step in the right direction?
Hi, Shireen. Yes, absolutely. First up, I think this is great news for startups. It helps them become more visible. As you know, a number of startups these days, they either look to seed funds or angel investors or friends and family for capital. This essentially helps them become more visible to potential investors, and it helps the entire process of fundraising become far more organized. I think it's also a fitting tribute to the new age businesses, including e-commerce, which are attracting hundreds of millions of dollars as it is anyway. So it only makes sense for the regulator to take a proactive step in this direction, and continuing with their efforts around real estate investment trust, infrastructure investment trust, and so on. The platform for startups sort of completes the value chain, because investors now can either can provide capital to startups, SME sector, as well as fully mature companies.
Great. Rajan, let's talk about some of the specifics in terms of the eligibility criteria. The minimum application size is pegged at 10 lakh rupees. The lock-in is set at about 6 months. Two kinds of institutional investors. QIBs will include family trusts and institutional investors, with the QIBs allotted the majority chunk of 75%. What do you make of the details when it comes to the eligibility criteria that the regulator is talking about?
Clearly, these are still guidelines. These are still early stage discussion papers. I don't think we have enough detail at this stage. Be that as it may, the direction that they have taken, I think the regulators spotted all the important issues. They understand that they may not be a large promoter offering a lock-in. They understand that only large investors with sophisticated understanding of these new age business models can participate. In terms of usage of proceeds, they have said we'll keep it fairly liberal. And so looking at all of these, they've also said a full prospectus needs to be filed, which means disclosure is going to be fairly complete.
Yeah.
But in terms of changes, two important things that come to mind when I look at the guidelines. One is the 25% condition that they have put in as the minimum, as the condition that no single promoter should own more than that. I would imagine that a company which has already been diluted below 25% for the promoters and those acting in concert has probably gone through a few rounds of fundraising already. If that is the case, I don't know if they would need to reach a startup platform for this. The second issue that needs close attention is the fact that a number of investors, particularly at the early stage, come in using convertible instruments, fairly protective rights, and the whole framework of governance. How will all of that get managed in a fully listed scenario? I think these are areas that the regulator will surely take a closer look at.
Absolutely, and we await those details from the regulator. But thank you very much, Rajendra, for highlighting some of the red flags that we need to watch out for. But directionally, great news there as far as India's booming startup universe is concerned. Appreciate your time here on India Business Hour. Moving on, Nantara, what do we have on Kane tonight?
Well, days after Kane Energy actually sought compensation from the government for that tax notice, and Vedanta Group also sending an arbitration notice, is all, of course, to do with that 20,000 crore rupee tax demand on Kane India. CBDT sources telling CNBC TV 18 the taxman has done what it was legally expected to do. Remember, the taxman had invoked the tax demand in respect to the transaction of Kane UK Holdings Limited transferring the shares of Kane India to Kane India as part of the internal group reorganization for an IPO in 2007 of Kane India. Sapna Das has been tracking that story, now joins us. Sapna, you know, the finance ministry says this is a legacy of the UPA government. The finance minister has still not repealed that retrospective clause. Taxman going ahead with that demand. These companies seeking compensation from the government is one royal mess.
Well, yes, if you look at the overall stance of the centre, it's not going to really soften its approach on this matter, at least. What we do hear from the Central Board of Direct Taxes is the fact that the Kane India case definitely can't come under the UK-India bilateral investment treaty. Tax matters are not really covered under that. First. Second, in terms of how the case has progressed and whatever the kind of assessment order that has come out, here also they are very clear that they have absolutely no discretion on this matter. The transactions that have actually gone through have actually happened, or rather will attract Section 9 of the Indian Income Tax Act. And since this act, or rather the Section 9 has not been repealed or anything of that kind has happened, well, the law of the land stands. So in terms of any kind of a softening on the stance, that looks unlikely. But the question here also is the fact that we really don't know under which law, Vedanta has gone ahead and filed the notice as far as Kane India is concerned. Other quarters of Central Board of Direct Taxes have said that would be interesting. If they have done it under the International Arbitration Consultation Act, something of the kind, then probably the approach could be different. But as of now, the Ministry of Finance has not really received anything formally from Kane India on that front. Very quickly on the Kane Energy case, well, here we are very clear that this could be actually headed towards arbitration. The interministerial group headed by the Revenue Secretary will meet soon to decide its response on this matter.
All right, Sapna, we'll have to leave it there. Appreciate you joining us there with the latest there as far as the Kane tax topic is concerned. As a slew of reforms from mining to coal to gas get underway, top bankers tell CNBC TV 18 that the worst may be behind us when it comes to bad loans, and incremental NPLs are all set to decline. But even these lower NPL levels are too high for comfort. Latha and Ritu get you more.
The asset quality of banks has seen a sharp deterioration in the past few years, and the numbers tell the story. From 4.1% of total loans in March of 2014, the gross bad loans rose to 4.5% in September and 4.7% in December. Even the stressed loans, which include restructured loans along with bad loans, stood at 10.7% in September, up from 10.1% in March last year. And for what is seen as a reflection of the state of the economy, the rise in NPLs is a very worrying sign. But is the worst behind us? India's top bankers sure believe that.
On top of all the actions being taken by various stakeholders, I think fresh incremental stress loans accretion to that is clearly slower.
For the last 5 quarters, we have seen the slippages coming down, but still the slippages are very substantial. We are not in a comfort zone still, but yes, relatively maybe compared to last year, the slippages have come down quarter on quarter, which perhaps indicates the pain is slowly easing in the system.
So what are these steps? The three stakeholders in this case, the government, the Reserve Bank of India and corporates have all taken some decisive steps to shape up the system. The government is bidding out more road projects with higher viability gap funding. Mining bans have been lifted in several states. Coal output has also improved, even though the resource has become costlier. Gas power plants, which are the worst affected, may also see a third of their capacities utilized thanks to the plan announced last week. The Reserve Bank of India has also done its bit. Banks can now recast long-term loans to infra into 25-year-long loans and initially finance only the first 5 years through the 525 scheme. RBI has also allowed banks to convert bad loans into equity at lower prices and even use their dominant equity stake to sell the company to a new management, thereby preventing the asset from turning bad. The central bank has also cut rates to ease liquidity and spur investments. Corporates, on their part, are not far behind. Burdened with high debt, many are now cleaning up their balance sheets by selling non-core assets.
We have seen in the past that transfer of physical assets is very painful, very time-consuming. There are many issues surrounding them. This new provision that has come of converting debt into equity shares is a major step in the right direction.
Bankers admit that these are all good steps, which will go a long way in dealing with the legacy issue of bad loans. But even the lower level of NPLs will still be high, they warned. Also, as the category called restructured assets gets phased out from April 1st, a technical jump in NPLs is also possible, though overall stressed loans will decline. In Mumbai with Lata Venkatesh, Ritu Singh.
Well, hopefully better days ahead there for the banking sector. On that note, it's time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. The markets moving higher today, 500-point rally on the Sensex. Will the markets continue to sustain this momentum? Remember, it is going to be a truncated trading week. From all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.